will answer to your questions, and you can set the questions by writing them to on your right hand side. In the screen you see the chat box, so you can write them there, and after presentation I will read the questions, and our panelists will then give the answers to questions. Altogether there was almost 100 registered participants. Now we have about 50. Hopefully soon everybody are in, but because the time frame is so tight, we have to start. And if you need the toilet, they are just in your right hand side in end of the corridor and there to the left, so help yourself if you need to go to the toilet while event. All of you most welcome to this event, and I want to thank you, Visit Arctic 2 team, Maikku Raittimo, Katja Pettersen, Nina Forssell, and our new member of the team, Swedish project manager Frida Ekström, who has been very much involved organizing this event. And I want to use also this opportunity to thank our task force groups who has lead the activities and project during this COVID-19 vortex, and we have had quite hectic springtime, as you can imagine. All activities has need to reschedule and reorganize, so there has been a lot of work. Thank you to all. But now let's go to the project update. I hope that you hear clearly and see the screen. If you don't hear or see, please type that also to the chat box, so our technical support, Richard Westerberg from Swedish Lapland, will solve everything. As you remember, the structure of the project, we have originally our plan was to finish the project until March 21. Now Interreg has allowed us to continue until end of the July 21. The budget is there, nothing has took away, but everything is these activities which should implement during the March, April, May and June has postponed, but we will return on those. In image marketing, you remember that our aim is to increase the awareness in selected segments and low season, show the low season strengths, raise interest and lead final consumer to selected delivery chain and their web shops. And all these activities in image marketing, they are very closely tied to the tactical marketing actions. And here you can see the timeline, what has happened, and now rescheduled timeline for coming image marketing activities. I will not go in this each activity content here because of the short time frame we have in our use, but if you have any questions about these already now, please let us know. And our aim is, of course, to inform each activity you could advance, that you can use also the material and possible increased interest in your own actions. And furtherly, we hope that you all will deliver these campaign contents also in your own channels. Next autumn, there is 2 big campaigns, Eat the Landscape and Aurora campaign, and then in 21 springtime, still some more image marketing actions to increase awareness and interest towards autumn 21. In tactical marketing, traditional, effective, good actions, sales workshops, FAM trips, and joint campaigns with our delivery chain. And at the moment, situation is so that we have signed contracts with 22 tour operators from our selected market areas. And as same way as we evaluate the amount of new travelers in Visit Arctic Europe 1 project, we have done that also in this project, and tour operators has said and informed us that with the production and planned marketing activities, they would reach some 40,000 new travelers for time period August to November. And average overnight stay is here about 5 nights, which means that there would be more than 200,000 overnights in this period. Of course, now because of this situation we have in our hands, we don't know how much this influence to these numbers. It's 100% sure that something happens, and it would be great surprise if we would get these overnights from the marketing activities, but as you all understand, there is big doubt that we cannot reach this, at least not in this first autumn. We have wide FAM trips program, and here you see how we have postponed part of them to 2021. Sales workshop in Alta. We want to believe that we can keep this workshop in its place in end of the September, and we have now evaluated by asking from our selected tour operators or contracted tour operators if they are willing to come, if they will prioritize this workshop in their own calendar, if the borders are open, if accessibility is there, and if the second wave of COVID is that it's safety to travel. And according that information, it's encouraged us to trust that this workshop will take place in end of the autumn. We are ready to remove the workshop to the later stage if there happens something, we find out that it's not wise or possible to implement workshop. It's in planned time. In external accessibility, we have many cases on our table. There is 2 charter operations for summer and autumn. Behind these charter operations, there is Voigt travel. Cees can tell more about this in his own phase. And then there is Nordic from Belgium, who will open the new charter series also for summer. We have 6 new scheduled flights initiation on negotiation process. Some of them are almost there. The written contracts are not yet, and of course this COVID situation has influenced also to this negotiation. But we trust that at least some of these 6 will go to the very end, and we will implement them together with the flight companies, tour operators, and consortium of the area and airport. In internal accessibility, as you all are aware, the Arctic route has already operated it started in beginning of the December 19, and the plan was that in this first wave they would operate until end of the March, but unfortunately because of the COVID, we had the companies had to close this down already in mid-March. But this will continue also in next year, next winter time, and additionally we are speaking with the new routes from Kirkenes all the way to Luleå, and then Kittilä, Kiruna, Narvik bus route, and decision of these will be finalized in this June. Hopefully we will succeed and this will be implemented. And then still there is a Troms-Rovaniemi flight, where we have a tour operator who is ready to carry risk of 60 seats, and this would be run then in a charter operation, so that the tour operator fulfill the flight, the seats with their own 30 clients, and then they will sell the other 30 seats to the other tour operators. Also, decision in this will be done also in this June. The clients are there, the tour operator is committed, but we still seek we have negotiations still with the flight company. And in competence development, we have run during the winter time the digitalization and sustainability activities. Thank you for all of you who has participated to these webinars we have run through, and a workshop for both of these headlines will be held in Haaparanta networking event. And as you remember, this should be done already in May, but now it's postponed, and in this very moment we are planning the new dates for this event. Most probably it will be in November in Haaparanta. And because we got more time to implement all activities, we have postponed also the final seminar from January 21 to May 21. Then one additional thing which is out of the original VAE II plan. We have applied more funding from Interreg and our co-funders to react to COVID-19 situation. And aim of this is really raise funding and use our platform organization cooperation to help regions travel industry recover from corona crisis. And this will be done so that the companies doesn't have to invest to this program or this project at all. Local companies doesn't need to invest, but we will handle this so that Interreg and co-funders will collect the whole money. Now we have sent the application. Unfortunately, we don't get the answer before October of this money, if we can use that or not. But the aim is that all this money will be used to the tactical marketing actions in cooperation with tour operators. And in next week, we will already approach the tour operators and offer to them cooperation in this. And the big change, if you compare this content to original VAE II content, is that in this rescue package, the tour operators doesn't need to focus on so-called most potential seasons, autumn, but they can use also this cooperation to market main seasons in their marketing actions. Okay, this was my phase, and if you have any questions, me and team is here for you, and we are ready to answer and help you in any questions you would have today or later stage. Now I let Jan Badur to step to the stage and let's hear what Jan has to say from DACH market. Thank you.
See you, Jan.
So double checking, do you hear me right now?
Yes, now we hear.
So it seems to be the headphones. Now it should be working. Does everybody hear me? I hope so. So I'm not going to repeating everything. Nice to see you all in that long list of names from Norway, Sweden, and Finland. So nice to see so many familiar names on that list. Well, what I promised to do is to tell about the DACH markets, about German, Swiss, and Austrian market. And just to let you know, those who don't know me, those who don't know about Nordic marketing, we are a marketing company here in Germany. We are specialized into the Nordic countries, and our target group are the tour operators. So we are working mainly business to business. And it means that we have a good contact to the tour operators, and that is why we set up some tour operator questionnaires. And we did so in April, and we did so last week again. So we have a follow-up. And I will present you results of the questionnaire where we wanted to know from the tour operators how they see the situation right now. How do they see the situation after Corona? What is their opinion and thoughts about the perspective from the Scandinavian point of view when it comes to the travel trade? But let's start with the news from yesterday. I just grabbed yesterday two latest news about traveling, and these headlines in German language, this describes the picture very well and the situation we have. So the first one is that the Germans are traveling again to Denmark. So Germany opened its borders to the neighbor countries and to other EU countries or inside the Schengen region. And one of the headlines was that we have Germans traveling to 14,000 cottages in Denmark yesterday. So it's a huge amount of people who wanted to start traveling again. And this is one message. So there are people willing to travel even these difficult times, and you have, and you know very well the situation in your own countries, how restricted it is, and how it affects to the situation. So the second headline, and this describes the situation quite well, when it comes to Sweden. I'm not judging anybody, and I'm not doing any political statements here, but you all know that Sweden has chosen another way, and this way, of course, affects the travel business. So I will focusing on the view from the travel trade perspective. So still, they do not recommend to travel to Sweden. So these are the headlines when it comes to the countries far north. Norway has been closed. Finland is still closed, and Sweden is a difficult case when it comes to travel business. It's kind of dividing and polarizing the opinions. There are people saying it's a brave and position they do very independently, not thinking to do the same way all the others are doing in the world, taking their way, but others are very strict against it. So it's polarizing the consumers, and it's polarizing the travel trade in the same way. And everybody is hoping that Finland is still going to open its borders for this summer, but from the perspective of the tour operators, it's much too late. And this will come up in the questionnaire results. Very shortly about the tour operator, I'm not going all to the details, just showing you shortly that the turnover is increasing every year. Tour operators doing the packages, the same with the travel agencies, the resellers doing the business down here in Central Europe. They are doing the business when it comes to tours up to the north. So when we talk about the main cities, the capital, it is different. But when it comes to the distance, to the more, let's say, complicated packages, then it's the tour operator who is doing the business here in this very old-fashioned market in Germany, in Switzerland, and in Austria. This just is the background why I'm talking about the tour operators. So what I show now is the first questionnaire result, only this one slide, and then I will jump to the latest version. So this is what we put out in April, where we asked tour operators what they think about the situation, what they think about Scandinavia in the future. In case I think you have your microphone on, I'm hearing sound twice. Thank you, Cees. So we asked the tour operators, and this went to 253 tour operators, and we got 46 answers. So most likely Scandinavia will benefit, or the Nordic countries will benefit, was more than 30%, and probably said more than the half, so 52. So very strong trust to the Scandinavian markets. So a very good statement from the tour operators' perspective. Now, when we changed to last week, when we got the answers from the second round, first of all, we didn't have that many answers anymore, not 46, we have 25. And this describes the situation as well quite well. They are kind of frustrated, and they are in a situation where they are just waiting for decisions. They are waiting for open borders to do their business. But still, they believe when there is the post-corona situation, when there is the possibility to travel, people will go towards the north. So Scandinavia is in a strong position from their perspective. And this is, of course, for everybody listening now and watching this, this is a very positive signal. So the tour operators, they strongly believe. And as I showed you with the news, 14,000 cottages just on Monday. So in Denmark, you have to stay 6 nights, and it's open for Germans and some other countries, but not for the rest of Europe. So there's a huge potential and a huge opportunity to use when it comes to travel from the DACH markets. So if we think further about the season, so we were asking them, and sorry, there is a mistake, it should be winter and not winter. So we asked about the summer season this year, we asked about the upcoming winter season, and we asked about next year's summer. So there is a strong trust on next summer, but the rather unlikely 67% for this summer is very clear. And this was mainly from last week's the answer. So Norway is still closed. Sweden is a big question mark. The tour operators are not willing to sell in these circumstances, and there is still a warning from the German government when it comes to Sweden. So it kind of stopped everything towards business, tourism business from Germany or Switzerland to Sweden. And with Finland, everybody is still hoping that some good news are coming up. So strong belief in winter, but clearly on summer next year. So this is where the journey goes to. So then we asked as well, what sort of products are for interest and where do they see the potential? And we have now split it into car round trips, bus round trips, and train round trips, just to have the selection. And this is not very much surprising. So being in an own car, being able to turn around driving back, or being independent, being as a couple or a family, not in a group, is the most favorite one. And round trips have always been very much sold here in Germany when it comes to Scandinavia. It's the same with Switzerland. And bus round trips has a long tradition, but as everybody understands, it's rather unlikely that people in this situation step into a bus spending time in a group or as a group traveling the whole time. So round trips, when it comes to the trains, it's a new thing, but it's an increasing thing. But this is a question mark for many tour operators. But then another issue, which is very typical, and this is the example with the Denmark travel situation. When it comes to cottage holidays, there is a huge potential. This is something where Scandinavia is really strong. There is a market and there is definitely a potential even this summer. So if somebody opens its borders, it might go all the way to autumn time. As you might know, the summer seasons and the summer holidays are in each part of Germany and a different time of the year. So we are talking about the season from June all the way up to September. So it's a long summer season. So there is still hope even for other countries. When we look this to winter, it's almost similar, but it's rather summer product. When we compare this to a hotel, we have now the situation that cottage gives more independency, gives more the safe space as a couple or for a family, instead spending time with others, and therefore it's not that much surprising. But when it comes to winter time, then the hotel is again in a very strong focus. When it comes to activities, when it comes to the smaller groups, same issue. The activities are mainly realized in groups. So for summer, there is probably of 58%, and when it comes to winter, most likely even 28 or probably 48. So there is trust in the activities, and the tour operators who are specialized in activities and those who are selling the northern part, the Visit Arctic Europe area or region, they are strongly believing that it will start again. So there is definitely a potential. And then we, of course, wanted to know what about city trips and the cruises, the big ships. And this is not very surprising, but this is a very clear answer. So we have even not at all of 24% answering to cruise business. So this is at the same time, let's say, a good thing and question when we think about Visit Arctic Europe region. So having completely other services or a focus on the activities, focusing on nature and all those experiences. It's far away, of course, from this target group, but at the same time, it gives the opportunity, the same with the city breaks, which are rather unlikely at the moment, that people want to go to the nature, spending time in the regions where is space enough and where they feel safe and still services are available. But when we think about the countries in general, and we asked about it as well, we want to know what will be the chance of each country. And there we put Denmark and Iceland as well in this selection. And there you see where they see the potential. So almost the same in all the countries, but we see as well a decrease from the perspective of the tour operators when it comes to Sweden. And this is just because of the situation right now. And it's at that moment, it's unsure how it's going to continue and develop. And so far, they are not able to sell trips to Sweden. It's, of course, increasing or decreasing their business as well. But on the other hand, they see an increased potential in many countries as well. So it's in a very good hand. It's in a very good position when we think about Scandinavia. And last but not least, we wanted to know about the image of the countries at this moment in those circumstances. And we wanted to know it from the customer perspective. And this is not so surprising. But this is what I mean with a perspective from the travel trade. The situation that Sweden has chosen another way, it affects from the client's perspective in a rather negative way. So this is the situation we are facing, and this affects, of course, to the business. Even there are tour operators saying, well, they are still in the same position. But this is how it affects to the travel business and to the consumer behavior. On the other hand, there are positive signals as well for other countries. In general, this is unchanged for Norway and Finland and Denmark, but even rather positive for Norway, how they have have been dealing with the Corona crisis. So this very quickly an overview of the main topics, the main result of the questionnaire. So the perspective from key accounts in Germany and Switzerland, tour operators who are selling Norway, Sweden and Finland, who are specialists in that and knows the market and the situation very well. But when we think about the future, when to sum up, and this is the time after the COVID or the Corona crisis. So there will be definitely demand and potential for having more distance, more space, enjoying the nature, as I said earlier. So it will be the physical distancing while traveling, and this affects, of course, into the decision making and planning the whole trip. And it will be more individual. It will be less group traveling. It will be much less mass tourism when you think about the global situation or even inside Europe. But as you might heard in the news, there was the first charter flight going to Mallorca from Germany. So this is like a test case. What's going to happen when hundreds of guests or even thousands are traveling to Spain? So these are the mass tourism, to say so, and then we have the opposite, and this is a huge potential for the Visit Arctic Europe region. And as I said, driving with their own car is clearly answered from the tour operators, having this opportunity, turning back all the time if needed, or feeling safe by staying in a car instead of being in a bus or in the public transportation. So there is clearly an increase. And when it comes to the accommodation, there again, the cottage gives you the privacy, it gives you the feeling of staying safe and far away from others. So there is definitely a market for. And then again, it's more the wilderness, the activities in the north. Is it in winter? Is it in summer? Is it in a smaller group or even for individuals? Rather than staying in a big city where it's crowded and a lot of people. And again, moving and traveling inside Europe and being not that far away from home, being able to drive by car back home, crossing the bridges or taking the ferry is something else than flying to the other side of the world where you don't know how it will end up if you need to come back. So all these things, all these circumstances, all these trends, what we are facing are a huge potential for Visit Arctic Europe as a region. So you are offering everything what comes to the needs of of the travelers from the Central Europe perspective. So time is running, and I know there are other speeches coming just after me. So in that point, I will say tack and kiitos for listening. And I cross fingers that borders will be open again and travelers are able to visit you as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jan. Very interesting and partly very encouraging information. Very informative. Let's go further. Next, Cees from Voigt Travel will tell the situation in Benelux market. Stage is your Cees.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Clearly.
That's good. Dear Arctic friends, so good to be able to talk to you. I see your names on the list. Unfortunately, I can't see your faces, but I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you, Jan, for a clear presentation with the analysis which we are used from you. And I have to say what has been surveyed on the German market, on the DACH region, in the DACH region, could also be, I would say, projected on the Netherlands. But anyhow, for those who don't know me yet, my name is Cees van den Bosch. I'm the CEO of Voigt Travel, and I've been working on the Visit Arctic Europe region for 35 years now. And of course, we have experienced a lot from 9/11 to the Marka crisis in 92, to Estonia, and all the other events in this last 35 years, but this tops all. So I hope everything is healthy at your home and surroundings. And I'm very happy that we're able to take this time to go through the situation, to see where we are, and perhaps even more important, to look together where we are going. These times are bizarre, and it seems that there is light at the end of the tunnel on this COVID-19. However, I have to say, and those people who know me also know that I'm always say what I'm thinking, and I think we are up to a difficult time. So economy is expected to decline, and that's a great shadow in front of us. On the other hand, I see that we have the opportunity with all the potential we have at hand to look ahead. As under these circumstances, the project Visit Arctic Europe gets even more value. And Jan has already mentioned this. There is a trend for nature, there is a trend for space, for healthy environment, and above all, people like to travel less to get to their holiday destination, or travel in a more private environment. We have also learned that, especially now when we try to open again, that there is not such thing as a united Europe, unfortunately. Neither is there a united Scandinavia, but let us at least aim at a united Visit Arctic Europe. After a very successful phase one, most of us have experienced this. We are in the middle of phase two, in the middle of a turmoil, and we are able to react on this and to create new structures, but this starts with our cooperation. If we look at the Belgian and the Dutch travelers and the market, we all know that the Belgians and the Dutch have been rather adventurous in their travel approach. The Belgians have discovered Scandinavia over the past 10 years and have been growing quicker than any other European source market. But both those countries, the Benelux, I'm not talking about Luxembourg here, but about Belgium and the Netherlands, have been hit hard by COVID-19. Especially Belgium has been suffering from the virus with a mortality rate. They were ranked the number 8 country in the world, and just behind Spain and Mexico, where the Dutch were ranked in this list as 15th. this COVID-19 has tempered the desire to travel, even among the most passionate travelers, I noticed. And well, I just want to be direct to you in this stage. And I want to say I'm sorry, but I think, at least from our market, that the summer for 2020 seemed to be lost. And we are not able to carry out our charters as we planned and structured under this Visit Arctic Europe Phase 2 in the autumn or in this late summertime. And of course, Rauno, I surely hope that some of the summer season will be saved, but don't count too much on that. I want to be direct and open to all of you. I see the things which are happening right now doesn't leave much for the summer of 2020. So I just want to take you along the road we have been going up to now. At Voigt Travel, we have been working very hard the last month to focus ourselves on the following points. First of all, we have been trying to be in contact constantly with our customers. We call it the customer lifetime loyalty or healthy nowadays, and approaching the customers by in a bilateral way. So communicating with them in two-way street on a very personal and not bureaucratic way. So there was a huge need for information. The uncertainty in the press in the Netherlands, unfortunately, not all the tour operators were one united front. So the big ones were giving out this message, the airlines were giving out another message, and there was hardly any security for the guests, the travelers as such. So I have to say it became a chaos, and then it's very important to be in constant contact with your guests, with your travelers. Of course, we also removed bookings. We had to return payments, and this was also a process which kept us very busy the last couple of weeks. Of course, we have also been in contact with you partners in the different regions to explain what's been going on our markets and how our customers and clients react on things. And on the other hand, we also went to different scenarios in which we were able to increase the product and quality services of our travel packages for not only the winter and summer, but also for off-season periods. The reason we are working on these issues is that we believe that the world as we know it before COVID-19 will look totally different after COVID-19. We are heading into a conscious world, and the virus has caused uncertainty among the travelers. And I think Jan also proved with his statistics that the desire and the demands will change. Then again, there are huge opportunities for the Visit Arctic Europe area, having the nature, the silence. Distance is also close to those over 700 million people living in Europe. So there are surely opportunities, but we have to understand what our position is within the new era of post-COVID-19. Despite of the huge potentials we just have to see where are we. And I'm convinced that many of you have been asking yourself different questions the last couple of weeks and months. And in this question, there most likely was always the word why. So if you are an accommodation owner, you might have asked yourself, why do I offer these services and what does it mean? Jan was mentioning about the fact that there is more demand for cottages than there is for hotels. So where does it bring you as an accommodation supplier? For the activity providers, one might ask, why am I focusing on a specific target group? How will this change? For the regional representatives, why do you still sell your destination to these markets or to these target groups? And for the tour operators, of course, why are we working with this partners and with that? So all the things which were natural up to now, they are changing. So this is very important to go through this. And we have to come up also with reasons for the future traveler. Why should I make this specific trip? Why should I go to the untouched Nord? It's also going to be very difficult from social economic perspective. It's going to be a difficult stage, but I think we are convinced that we are able to do it together with you, with the other tour operators, with the partners, and we constantly have to look for deeper layers within travel products. So instead of, or let's say that we do exploring instead of exploding, and that we will do development instead of commercializing. So I think it will take long-term commitments towards each other to work on these topics. Because whatever will happen, I'm sure that our future travelers, the guests, will make their choice even more and more consciously. And they will also become more critical of everything which being offered. And we have to convince them that the sustainability and everything we're offering in Visit Arctic Europe is also a true story. Otherwise, they will never come and discover Visit Arctic Europe. So I think it's even more important, and I'm very happy that Rauno and the crew is on this job in phase 2. I'm also happy to see that you have asked for additional help, assistance in this. But I strongly believe that we have the values. I strongly believe that we have the contact. I strongly believe that we have the future. But if I see now what's happening also among the Scandinavian countries with the travel restrictions between the Swedes and the Finns and the restrictive measures taken by the Norwegians, then I think we should act and stay strong and secure the position of Visit Arctic Europe, and not, from my point of view, at least from the Dutch and the Belgian market as such for the summer 2020, because we see this as the summer which is already behind us. But we have to come up with a joint scenario planning for the upcoming seasons. And unfortunately, it cannot be only this Arctic autumn, but I think also for winter and summertime, we should stand together and go through a scenario where we take away the uncertainty among travelers. And this could be with simple things by developing scenarios of how safaris should be handled, how transfer should be handled, and safety and health issues are very important, but we should develop them. I think from my point of view, I think this was a drawback for all of us, but I see a bright future, and I would like to say, stay calm, stay safe, stay healthy, but above all, stay together. So thank you.
Thank you, Cees. Very important views and advices also for future. Let's go further, and last but definitely not least, Clive Stacey from Discover the World. Please open to us what is the situation in UK.
Thanks very much. We are kind of in a little bit of a pickle here at the moment. I'm just going to briefly explain where we are in the UK and provide a snapshot from the British market. One of the things which is constant in this whole COVID situation is that there is no certainty, and any plans have to be reviewed almost on a daily basis. However, we have around about 16 separate projects on the go to launch when we are able to trade again, and we have actually great optimism for the future. So let's see. So the current situation in the UK, lockdown restrictions were applied 12 weeks ago, but are gradually easing across the UK as the number of coronavirus infections drop. A level of lockdown is still in place. The government advises you must stay at home, work from home if you can, limit contact with other people, keep your distance. If you go out, go outside, 2 meters is the rule. Wash your hands. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Do not meet in groups larger than 6. Primary schools, some reopen. Most kids are still at home. Non-essential shopping opened actually yesterday, not the 5th of June. And then pubs, restaurants, hairdressers, I desperately need a haircut, and some other businesses will remain shut until at least July. Face coverings are now mandatory. This is a new thing in the UK, on public transport and recommended in shops. So, yeah, as of the 8th of June, for no logical reason, the UK government decided to impose a 14-day quarantine situation, very much after the horse had bolted, just at the time when most European countries are actually relaxing theirs. 90% of Discover the World customers surveyed, and this was a survey last week, said they would not travel against foreign and Commonwealth advice. So we have a 14-day quarantine period and the advice that, from the government, you shouldn't travel anywhere in the world. Whilst the FCO advice against travel is in place, travel insurance, well, at least part of the policy won't cover any COVID-19 claims unless you took out the insurance prior to the outbreak of COVID. The concern around not being covered by travel insurance is a major deterrent to booking holidays at this time, certainly for our sector in the market. The UK traveller is less concerned about catching coronavirus than other nationalities, apparently, but they are concerned about the inconvenience they expect that they're now experiencing when travelling through UK airports, and this is more likely to put them off booking a holiday. So 2020 projected change in GDP. There's 2 scenarios here. There's the single hit scenario. So this is if coronavirus goes away and stays away. And the second one is the double hit scenario where it comes back again. And you can see the UK is probably more severely hit than most other countries in the developed world and in most parts of the world. The double dip scenario, France fares worse. But the OECD, predict that the UK will bounce back far quicker than any other major Western developed country. The problem is that the UK is more dependent on services than most other countries. We have a service-based economy. And on top of that, we've imposed strict containment policies, and rather late in the day. So despite the UK government's generous furlough scheme to help employees pay staff wages, there will still be high unemployment rates, which will leave a mark on consumer confidence and disposable income. In 2020, GDP will remain lower than in pre-recession, the pre-recession trend. Expected high spending in the first year of recovery will help to soften the blow. But it's still going to be a concern in the medium to long term. The recovery, there's all sorts of different models here. You can read some of them, but it's very, very difficult to know where we're going to go from here. Certainly one homogeneous recovery will, where everyone starts travelling, won't happen. So changing UK consumers. Consumer behaviour will change and holidays will be booked much closer to departure. There's an expectation that people will become better tourists and will cherish travel more. So this is the sustainability aspect of things. We expect people to be more interested in environmental concerns when they come back to travel. We are, for example, developing a new series of rail trips around the UK. Around Europe and including Scandinavia. They take fewer trips and make more spend more at the destination because they'll be actually there for longer. They will travel locally first, then short haul, then long haul. Expect growth in demand for off the beaten track, less populated areas, and more demand for wildlife and nature experiences. Spending on experiences will continue and will accelerate. Trust and transparency is now vital and will be a major factor in who consumers choose to travel with. Flexibility in booking conditions and fair cancellation terms are key. So this is where we need the help and understanding of all our partners, both that are working on in the airline world and in the destination that we're traveling in. We have to be much more flexible with refunding customers if the situations dictate that. So health and safety reassurance for each stage in the customer journey is essential and is what customers are looking for to help them make their decision in where they're going to travel to. So this is a few results of the survey that we've just had with our customers. 56% of these customers have booked and travelled with us before. And we have a very good rate of bookers that have travelled with us before. So this is interesting thoughts. So there's definitely here an intention to travel in the future. There's obviously I'm not sure at the moment. I don't want to commit myself, because things are so uncertain, but there's a big proportion that want to travel this autumn and winter and next spring, and in fact in the summer. So there's a big cross section. This was over 1,000 responses we got back from our database. So some good material here. So do you expect the coronavirus will change your travel habits in the long term? So fairly resounding, no, not really. But I'm a little bit unsure in certain parts. But nothing particularly negative here. Do you plan to spend the same, less or more money on your holidays over the next 2 years in comparison to what you would have spent prior to this period? Around the same. That's not too bad a situation. I think people will be understanding that if social distancing continues, then airline tickets will have to cost more, and possibly also that the hotels that they stay at will be more expensive, and other areas of the travel business as well. So outbound travel, the next stage, we still have this 14-day quarantine, which is going to be reviewed every 3 weeks. So the next review date is the 29th of June. There's intense political and pressure from the travel industry in the UK to drop this as soon as possible, The UK's 3 largest airlines are in the process of taking the government to court to challenge the quarantine rule. So this could mean the quarantine rules may be lifted immediately if the courts find that this is unreasonable, that they will quash it. There is talk, increasing talk about air bridges or air corridors. This is a bilateral travel link between the UK and other countries, allowing quarantine immunity. Ministers will use a 5-point assessment to decide which countries will be prioritised for possible air bridges. The criteria will include the economic importance of the country to the UK, the number of passengers and amount of trade, the COVID-19 risk picture and the health screening requirements in place at airports for passengers coming to Britain, a country's COVID-19 controls, ensuring the R rate for infection in a country is low. So this is protecting, this is the government protecting the UK against passengers coming from other parts of the world, when the UK is still having more problems than just about any other country in the rest of the world. So not a great place to be in. But having said that, there is very good indications that the infection here is coming down in an increasing pace. An air bridge agreement, we can assume, by necessity involves lifting of the foreign Commonwealth travel advice. So this is the government advice saying you can't go abroad at all. The Daily Telegraph reports that the Department of Transport has intimated to airlines that air bridges could be announced on the 25th or 26th of June, meaning Brits could fly to selected destinations without facing quarantine on their return. And just something I picked up, a cartoon from the Times the other day. I think, you know, all of us in the UK are really frustrated with the way things are going here, the way our government has handled things, and we're hoping some sort of sanity will come into place. I myself, primarily to get myself a haircut, are going to Iceland tomorrow. As the law stands at the moment, when I get to Iceland, I will be welcomed. I will take a test at the airport, and I'm allowed to then continue to my destination, which is a hotel about 100 kilometers away from the airport, and I will be advised of the results of the test within 24 hours. I'll spend about 12 days there, and as things stand at the moment, I will have to go into 14 days quarantine when I come back to the UK. We are hoping that some people, we now have tours, special COVID adapted tours available on our website, and we're hoping that some people will just travel with us anyway. They will have to sign a waiver explaining that they accept that they're travelling against government advice. But the thought of going into quarantine when we're already in more or less the same sort of quarantine when you get back isn't a particular problem at the moment. So thanks very much to listening to me, everybody. And I hope all of us will have a really good future. We are very optimistic, and we hope that very soon we'll all be able to travel again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Very good information to use, and hope that the restriction also in UK will be lifted soon, and we will see latest in next winter time the UK clients already here in Scandinavia. While all of our participants start to warm up, about what they're going to ask, I would like to set one question to all of you. The Clive already touched a little bit about this issue, but how you see how the flight connections will be recovered and in which time frame and in which order, and is there still all flight companies serving our clients to travel? Jan, could you start?
Well, first of all, we are happy that Finnair and SIS are flying again to Germany. So this helps a lot that, let's say, the key players from the Nordic countries are back on track, even if it's a smaller selection. But in general, I know that all the airlines have the pressure to fill up their planes, so they will do everything to get them back flying. But at the same time, there are so many open questions, and it's rather difficult to give a time frame for it. But it will take time, but it's really necessary when we think about winter tourism, when we think about the far north destination, that we do need definitely the airline connection. So therefore, it's really good that those two big players are flying again and giving kind of the direction where to go.
Okay, Cees, what is your understanding in this question?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to flight companies, I think, as Clive also mentioned shortly, the situation is very unsure and difficult. The aid to Finnair is approved by the European Committee, but for example, in the Netherlands, KLM is still requesting aid from the government, and they have not come to an agreement yet. Flight companies are suffering in this stage, so they will fly if they're able to fly and if they're able to make good business on beforehand. In this case, the flying being done from Amsterdam and the other airports is mainly necessary travel. So there are only Portugal is now open for leisure. And they're looking at other markets as well, but this will go step by step. I don't see any problems for the winter time or late autumn, but I'm sure that the flight companies will not make any extra costs or take any chances in operating on destinations where they're not sure that they will get good yield in this stage, because they're losing money day by day, hour by hour. But this will only be more if they fly and operate with too low occupancy. So in all the scheme we are looking at, I think they're by far the weakest links. So I'm not so confident about, as you might understand from us now canceling our operation for summertime. I'm not so confident about the near future when it comes to flight companies. But let's hope for the best, and it might change in a couple of days or weeks. But most of them do need aid. They do need money, taxpayers' money, in order to survive and to go around. So it's going to be a long and uncertain way.
Yes. Clive, please.
Yeah, okay. We have not very many air bridges at the moment. We have flights to Helsinki. We have nothing to either Sweden or Norway. We have flights to Iceland, and that's it at the moment. I would imagine that there will be a very fast response once the lifting of the different restrictions happen, and hopefully that will be very soon. We're still, as things stand at the moment, we're still operating our charter to from London to Kiruna. The first one starting middle of December. But we will have to review that later. At the moment, we have obviously far fewer bookings than we would normally have at this point in time. And our cooperation with SAS where we would normally have had to sign a contract by now. They've been very flexible on that, and they're still in a situation where they're reviewing their own operation. So there is no pressure there. So we're kind of optimistic, but we don't have very much in the way of air corridors at the moment. We're actually discussing with a company that specializes in brokering executive jets to put together trips to Sweden and Iceland for upscale clients that will charter a executive jet and then bring their friends and family to one of those countries. And we've got high hopes that something like that might happen. So got to be imaginative and try all sorts of new things in this kind of climate at the moment.
Great. Actually, you answered a little bit already to this Katja's question to Cees and Clive. Since you both operate charters and all are talking about the social distancing, how do you look the future of that business? Clive, would you like to continue, because you already a little bit opened this Lux jet flight concept is quite interesting.
Well, I think the whole concept of social distancing on aircraft is complete nonsense. It's not viable. The Icelanders specifically exclude this in all transportation. So there is no coronavirus on Iceland, and during the period they were fighting it, they specifically excluded all transportation on public transport, and that included airlines. What they do on an Iceland Air at the moment is that they book passengers as far apart as they can do. If you arrive at the airport and you want to change your seat to maybe sit next to your wife or be farther away from your wife, I don't know, then you can do that at the check-in gate. But recently, out of London anyway, masks have been compulsory. That was a UK government request, not an Icelandic request. I think the social distance in the UK will go down to 1 metre quite soon, as far as I understand. But I think with the very effective filters on aircraft, it seems to be that the chance of catching COVID, if you happen to be sitting next to someone, is much less than if you were perhaps sitting next to them in a room back in the UK. So I think we would have to follow the advice at the time. But obviously, if we're expected to close down the middle seat and impose other restrictions, that would have a very big impact on the profitability of the flight, and we would probably not operate it.
Clive, sorry, Cees, could you continue from this?
Yeah, surely. I think, well, in the Netherlands, masks are also compulsory. And Clive is right about the air filtering, which is a technical issue which needs to limit the possibilities of getting COVID-19. I honestly think that the charter model we're all having, if the social distance is 1.5 up to 2 meters, it won't work for sure. So we have to look at the technical solutions there are, and in the Netherlands, even the government announced that flying might be one of the worst and one of the less hostile environments when it comes to COVID-19. So it's different from trains and buses. But on the other hand, masks and a good air filter system is required. If that won't happen, it's going to be difficult to as Clive said, to operate a flight based on, let's say, 50 or 60% occupancy, because then it's going to be a very expensive way of traveling. But I see a light at that tunnel. So the technical development in this case, hopefully, also, of course, we will also get a vaccine for COVID-19. But social distancing, they're talking in the Netherlands as well right now, that this is limited to 1 meter, and that it's not applicable for aircrafts as such.
Thank you. I flew last week with Finnair, and I felt completely safe. Everybody had to wear the mask. If somebody didn't have when they entrance, the crew gave it, and everybody was given also the disinfection hand thing, and so I'm sure that there comes new rules, but hopefully travelers will cope with those. Let's go further. Karin asked, this goes to the Jan, please. Karin Ober from Luleå asked, do you see any need to develop some more new products based on car and road trips behavior, or support that travel behavior from the local destinations?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the DACH markets, the focus is very often at the tour operators table, to say so. When they plan the round trips, they might have this as an issue. And of course, it would help to open doors, to think about the safety, to offer this sort of round trips where people feel maybe more safe. I would definitely try that, and I would definitely offer this way of thinking to tour operators. And there might be some of those who say, "Okay, let's focus on that." But in general, it's difficult to say in this stage and how it will develop. And it's the same as you mentioned with a mask in the airlines or at the planes. It depends as well on the market. Here in Germany, we have to use masks when we enter any kind of shop or store, so we are used to that. And the other way around, and this is an experience from my parents who just a couple of weeks ago traveled from Berlin to Finland, as they stay half a year in Finland, half a year in Germany. They went into the shop in Finland and nobody were using those masks. And in the beginning, they were using those. And the effect was that people start to look them. Are they sick? Do they have the coronavirus? Why are they using this mask? So it even affects on the behavior of the people, depending where you come from, what rules and regulations you have in your home country. So in that way, it might affect to some tour planning, to some tour operators, or to the consumers, how they start to plan the whole trip and what effects to their decision making.
Very good. Thank you, Jan. Then a question to Clive regarding UK travelers considering going to Sweden, Norway, or Finland. Are Sweden considered more dangerous to travel to, hence the high death rates in Sweden?
No, I don't think so. I think it's obviously difficult to know what every traveller thinks at this point in time, because we by the fact that no one's booking holidays, you don't speak to them very much. It wasn't one of the questions we put in our survey, because we operate to about 15 destinations around the world, not just the Nordic area, although the Nordic area is the most important. I think that there's a great deal of respect for the way that the Swedes have dealt with the situation in the UK. There's obviously, you read some things about the way that the death rate is so much higher. in Sweden, and they should be following the same lead as the Norwegians and Finland did, and Denmark. But I read something somewhere that the final result will be maybe in a couple of years' time, once this is passed all the way through. And most modelling philosophies will probably result in the same thing. But I guess it depends on how soon a vaccine is found. But yeah, just to summarise, that there is no negativity to Sweden, and people also respect what Norway and Finland and Denmark have done. And generally speaking, people in the UK feel that most countries have had better results in dealing with the COVID situation than we had in the UK.
Thank you, Clive. Kari Norberg asked from Cees that does Netherlands authorities also have travel restriction about Sweden?
Yes, Karin, unfortunately we do have this travel restriction. The Dutch government has in their statement announced that they would not advise to travel to Sweden if not necessary. They have colored the different destinations, yellow, orange and red. Red is really no-go with high risk. Orange, there is risk and not advisable to travel, and Sweden is among orange, as well as Norway right now, as well as Finland. And the only one being yellow in the first stage where you are able to travel, but at your own risk, so to say, is Iceland. Looked at the perspective from the Dutch government. And this is, of course, a bit annoying for all of us, that the different government, the different countries, if it's UK or Germany or the Netherlands or Belgium, all approach a destination differently. But unfortunately, even if we would in this stage, we're not allowed to operate on Sweden, to fly on Sweden.
Okay, Lise Hansen set the question to all panelists. Do you think, based on the answers from consumers, that it will be difficult in the future to sell hotel rooms and packages? Jan, could you start?
Well, in this first phase, as I mentioned, the result, it will be the focus on cottages as an option. But in the long run, it is, again, definitely hotels. And if you compare hotels in far north of Sweden, Norway, or Finland compared to mass tourism resorts, there is a big difference. And I think the smaller one are more requested in the moment. And when it comes to round trips, there might be the situation that people prefer the smaller, the more family-owned place compared to the big hotels. But in general, when you compare the northern part of the Nordics to other countries, it's still in a small scale. So there is definitely a potential and business, yes.
Clive, would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, okay. What I can tell you is the way that we're dealing with trips to Iceland at this stage. So the 7 trips that we are prioritizing at the moment, because Iceland is open, is self-drive trips, staying mostly in hotels, but there's also a summer house option. And what we've done is to put on our website full details, questions and answer section about the whole journey. That's from the airport in the UK, on the aircraft, and then at the other end. And also about the hotels, about what it's like to travel around, what you should expect, and things like this. And we've provided details of the Icelandic government recommendations about how a hotel should be operated in this situation, what the safety precautions are even though they have no COVID, they're still acting like they are in some sort of ways. And there's a certain amount of social distancing, disinfectant in different areas. Same on public transport. And so we're building the confidence of the passenger. When I go to Iceland tomorrow, some of us are traveling around the country, and we're going to send back on social media pictures of what it's like to be in particular parts of the country, so that people can see with their own eyes and ask questions about the experience. And I would imagine we'll do a similar sort of situation when travel is allowed to the Nordic region as well.
Thank you, Clive. Cees, please.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Well, for those who know us already, you might know that on the Dutch and Belgian market, there is a high demand for cottages. People like to stay in self-catering units, not that they don't want to use services from restaurants or activity companies or even services from hotels, but they like this atmosphere. There will be, as well as Jan showed in the figures, a higher demand from the Netherlands. On the other hand, I think there is also a chance for hotels and bigger accommodations, so to say. Of course, there will be a demand for that as well. But for them, it's even more important to not only show their quality, not show their service level, but also be clear in how they handle bigger numbers. So as we see in the Netherlands as well, the places where people flock together, like shops or restaurants or places, it's very important to that the guests, that the travelers, at least from the Netherlands, that they understand how the logistic ways go. So where should you check in? What should be the distance? Are the hotel rooms cleaned? Are other areas more frequently cleaned? So I think for all you as accommodation and service suppliers, you should think about the protocols you're using. Preferably, I know that's going to be very difficult, but perhaps you could, under the umbrella of Visit Arctic Europe, take up the opportunity to look at protocols and learn from each other and try to be a bit uniform in that. That would help all the visitors, all the guests. But I think for all the service suppliers, but especially for the bigger accommodations, these logistic protocols are going to be very important in the future. In addition to the restaurant, the services, the beautiful rooms being offered, people understand and see that if you have a cottage, that you are there on your own. If the key is in the door and there is no reception to report to check in, that's then very easy accepted. But for others, and I also think of safari companies and those one handling more people, think about these protocols and try to perhaps join forces on that topic.
Very good. I see very important that the policies, healthy and safe policies, will be synchronized between the companies, areas, and even cross-borderly, because it would be totally hassle for final consumers to learn everything every time new when she go to the different accommodation or different activity during the day. There is one question said to me, will the planned Kittilä-Kiruna-Narvik Arctic route operate via Ylläs? Well, in this negotiation, the spider of the net is Trond Arne Kongsli from Bushring, and we hope that Visit Abisko will cooperate with us in this initiation, but definitely it would be the most silly thing to leave Ylläs out from this route. It's attractive from many point of view. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any more time for more questions. In this stage, I want to thank our honorable guests, Cees, Jan, and Clive. Thank you for taking time to us, and thank you for all participants. Thank you for Richard Westerberg, well known as Riku, who take care of the technical issues in this meeting, and I hope that we will hear soon positive news about the borders, that travelers can really come, and planes are flying, and we start to recover little by little from this disaster vortex time we have faced. Next week we will inform more about this rescue package, and we start to approach the tour operators very soon also in that. Thank you to all. Have a nice summer, and let's keep in touch and united. Cooperation is the main word. Thank you.
Thank you, Rauno. Thank you, everyone. Stay strong, stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.